The room fell silent the moment the old laptop wheezed to life. It wasn't the kind of silence born from respect, it was the sharp, suffocating quiet of judgment. Eyes lingered too long, smirks spread too easily, and somewhere in the back, someone let out a soft, careless laugh that cut deeper than it should have. In a glass-walled conference room 20 floors above the city, under the harsh brightness of midday sun, one man sat gripping a machine that looked like it had survived a decade too many. And across the table, the CEO didn't even try to hide her disdain. Before we dive deeper into this story, take a moment, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of resilience, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Echoes the Stories. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. His name was Armaan Viral, and the laptop in front of him wasn't just outdated, it was embarrassing. The hinge was slightly cracked, the keys were worn down to a dull shine, and a faint buzzing sound came from inside whenever it worked too hard, which was often. It didn't belong in a billion-dollar tech firm's headquarters. It didn't belong in that room. But Armaan did. Or at least, he was trying to. He sat straighter than he felt, his fingers resting gently on the keyboard as though the fragile machine might give up at any second. Across from him sat Syra Halden, the CEO of Halden Core Systems, a woman known for her precision, brilliance, and ruthless efficiency. She was dressed in sharp lines and confidence, her presence commanding the room with effortless authority. Her eyes moved from Armaan to the laptop, and the faint curl of her lips said everything she didn't bother to say aloud. But then she did. A soft chuckle escaped her, not loud, but deliberate. It spread across the table like spilled ink. "Is that what you'll be using?" she asked, her tone light, almost amused, as if she had just noticed a child bringing a toy to a professional meeting. The others joined in quietly, exchanging glances that said more than words. Armaan felt it all, every flicker of judgment, every whisper of doubt. But he didn't respond. Not yet. Because this wasn't the first time he'd been underestimated. 3 years ago, Armaan hadn't even imagined himself sitting in a room like this. Back then, his world was much smaller, much heavier. A cramped apartment with peeling paint. A tiny kitchen where the smell of burnt toast lingered too often. And a little girl named Meher, who slept curled against him every night as though the world outside their door was something to fear. Because sometimes, it was. After his wife passed away unexpectedly, life didn't just change, it shattered. Grief came in waves, but responsibility came like a storm that never left. There was no time to fall apart when a 5-year-old needed breakfast, needed school, needed comfort in the middle of the night when nightmares came too real. Armaan had once been a promising software engineer. Brilliant, people said. Driven. But grief doesn't respect ambition. Jobs were lost. Opportunities slipped. Interviews went poorly when sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. So he adapted. Freelance work. Night shifts. Learning new skills online while Meher slept beside him. That old laptop became his lifeline. It wasn't fast, but it was faithful. It carried his late-night coding sessions, his failed attempts, his small victories. It held the first application he ever built entirely on his own, the one that barely worked but meant everything. And over time, it became something else too. A tool of mastery. Back in the conference room, Syra leaned back slightly, folding her arms as she studied him. "We're a company that builds the future," she said calmly. "We expect our candidates to reflect that." Armaan finally looked up, meeting her gaze with quiet steadiness. There was no anger in his eyes. No desperation either. Just something deeper. Something grounded. "Sometimes," he said, his voice calm but firm, "the future isn't built with what looks impressive. It's built with what works." Another ripple of amusement passed through the room. Syra raised an eyebrow, intrigued now, though she wouldn't admit it. "Then show us," she said. The test they had prepared was not simple. It was designed to challenge even the best engineers, real-time system optimization under simulated network stress. Most candidates struggled. Some failed entirely. Armaan placed his fingers on the keyboard. The laptop buzzed faintly, almost as if it knew it was being watched. And then he began. The first few seconds were unremarkable. Lines of code appeared slowly, the machine lagging slightly as it processed each command. One of the executives checked his watch. Another leaned back, already losing interest. Armaan's typing changed. It wasn't faster, it was precise. Each keystroke deliberate, measured. He wasn't fighting the machine, he was working with it, anticipating its limits, adjusting his approach seamlessly. The room grew quieter. What they didn't see, what they couldn't understand, was that Armaan had spent years learning how to do more with less. When your system crashes mid-project, you learn to save smarter. When your RAM can't handle heavy processes, you learn to optimize beyond what's taught. When failure isn't an option because someone depends on you, you find a way. Minutes passed. The simulation intensified. Data loads increased. Network disruptions were introduced. Even high-end systems struggled under this test. Armaan's laptop stuttered once. Someone smirked. Then he did something unexpected. He stopped. For a moment, it looked like he had given up. Syra leaned forward slightly, ready to conclude what she had already decided. But Armaan wasn't stopping. He was recalibrating. His fingers moved again, faster now, not frantic, but confident. He bypassed layers of inefficiency in the system itself, rewriting parts of the test environment on the fly. He wasn't just solving the problem anymore. He was improving it. The screen flickered once more. And then everything stabilized. The system, designed to break under pressure, held steady. Perfectly. No one spoke. Syra's expression changed, just slightly. Not disbelief. Not yet. Interest. Impressive, she admitted, though her tone still held a trace of challenge. But optimization is one thing. Security is another. She tapped her tablet, and within seconds, a new challenge appeared. Our internal system, she said. Simulated, of course. Let's see how you handle intrusion detection. It was a test meant to measure defensive thinking. Armaan glanced at the screen. Then, quietly, he asked, "Do you want me to defend it, or break it?" A few people chuckled again. Syra didn't. "Break it," she said. There was something in her voice now. Something sharper. Armaan nodded. And then, without hesitation, he began. What happened next unfolded so quickly that it almost felt unreal. His fingers moved across the keyboard with a rhythm that no longer matched the slow, aging machine beneath them. It was as though the laptop had disappeared, leaving only skill behind. Lines of code. Rapid execution. Silent precision. The system responded. At first, it resisted. Firewalls triggered. Protocols activated. Then, one by one, they fell. Not through brute force, but through understanding. Armaan wasn't attacking randomly, he was reading the system, predicting its behavior, finding the smallest cracks and widening them with surgical accuracy. 10 seconds. 8. 5. And then. Access granted. The screen changed. The room froze. Someone actually stood up, disbelief written all over their face. Syra didn't move. For the first time, the confidence in her posture shifted, just barely. Her eyes locked onto the screen, then slowly lifted to meet Armaan's. "How?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Armaan leaned back slightly, his hands resting on the worn edges of his laptop. "Systems don't fail because they're weak," he said. "They fail because they assume no one will look closely enough." Silence followed. Heavy, undeniable silence. But this wasn't just about a test anymore. Because in that moment, something deeper had changed. Not just in the room, but in Syra. She saw it now. Not the laptop. Not the clothes. Not the quiet demeanor. She saw the years behind him. The struggle. The discipline. The resilience that no polished resume could capture. And suddenly, her earlier laughter didn't feel harmless anymore. It felt wrong. The meeting ended differently than anyone expected. There were no more tests, no more questions. Just a quiet acknowledgement that something exceptional had walked into the room disguised as something ordinary. But Armaan didn't celebrate. Because for him, this was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving something else right. That no matter how far life pushes you down, you can still rise, quietly, steadily, and powerfully. That evening, as sunlight softened into gold, Armaan returned home. Meher ran to him the moment he stepped through the door, her laughter filling the small apartment with warmth that no success ever could. He knelt down, hugging her tightly. "How was your day?" she asked. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It was important. Later that night, after she fell asleep, he opened his laptop again. The same old machine. The same worn keys. But now, it felt different. Not because it had changed. But because the world had finally caught up to what it always was. Enough. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, please take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them the most.